Welcome to the Church on the Hill Sermon of the Week. We hope you enjoy this message from our Sunday morning service. If you have any questions about the message or about the church, or would like to know more about who we are, please feel free to contact our church office through the contact information located here on the website.
Well, what we're going to talk about today is probably something that you're going to say, okay, it's September, not February. You are totally in the wrong part of the year. But today we are going to talk about something that is very common in our world, and that's love. Our world, culture, we tend to kind of get really familiar with this word love. Unlike the Hebrew language, we have one word for love, and we just call it all love, no matter what it is, and we just label it all love, and we don't really categorize it at all. And it's really common in our world, something I hear a lot, is people use the same statement about objects or food as they do people. So it's like, I just love this kind of food. I just love my truck. I love my phone. And a lot of times when you hear people talk, we end up sounding like we have this amazing affection and care and relationship with inanimate objects, because when we talk about our phones or our trucks or a specific type of food, we love them. And it sounds like we are so connected with these things. But then when we talk about the people that we do life with, we don't really tend to sound that way. We tend to be like, oh yeah, I love her. Oh yeah, I love him. Or sometimes it's, oh, I love them, but I don't like them. That's really common in families with siblings. I used to hear that, not in my family, but I used to hear that in my friends' families growing up. It was like, well, you don't have to like them, but you have to love them. Okay, first of all, I don't understand that. If you don't like somebody, there's no possible way you can love them. I used to think love was an emotion. It was a feeling. It's not. Love is not an emotion. Love is not a feeling. Love is a choice. Love is an action. Love is a decision. Love is not something that happens to you. It's not a Disney fairy tale that, we're not cartoon characters that you see somebody and a lightning bolt hits you in the head and you are automatically in love with this person or this thing. You choose it. And I'm pretty sure anyone that has been walking through a marriage, through time, or any relationship can understand that love is a choice. Because it's really easy when feelings get hurt and when things happen, it's really easy to say, you hurt me, you crossed this boundary, that's where you stop now. That's your territory, this is mine, we will coexist, we will live peacefully. I'll love you because we're Christians and I love everybody. No, you don't. And I can say that because if we really loved everybody, our world would look differently. We would look differently because we don't look like love. Because love has a specific look, it has a specific characteristic. And sadly, we don't look like it. Jesus is the perfect embodiment of love, of all that it is everything it's made to be, everything, every part of it, from righteousness to holiness to punishment, because it's all love, it's all wrapped in there. Because that happens, it's, oh, if you love me, you'll let me do what I want. No, that just means you're a brat and you're selfish. Because if I really love you, I'm not going to let you do whatever you want. Because if I really love you, I'm going to protect you, and I don't want you to be harmed, so I'm going to go out of my way to teach you what's right, how to be safe, how to be cautious. Parents do it all the time. You teach your kids you don't run in the street. You don't get in cars with random people. We teach those things because we protect the people we love. Because we love them, we don't want harm to come to them. But somehow in our world, in our lifestyle, in our culture, our definition of love has changed. And it has changed to, if you love me, you're going to give me what I want, you're going to make me feel good, and everything's going to be this happy bubble world of Disney princesses. Or, I don't know, Disney something if you're a boy. But that's what we think. Because we think love is this constant, I get what I want, I'm always happy, everything works in my favor, and we're good. But that means that our version of love is looking this way, and the only person we're really in love with is ourselves. Because the true definition is what we celebrated with communion today. The true definition of love is the fact that you're going to lay your life down for somebody else. Because Jesus loved the world. Jesus loved you and me and every person that has ever existed enough that he said, I'm holy, I'm perfect, I'm sinless. I've never dealt with pain, I've never dealt with suffering, but I choose to step down from an authority, from a glory. I choose to step out of every part of the Godhead that I am and take on a form that is so beneath me. I choose to take on a form that carries humanity. I choose to demote myself and be something less than I am. And then he chose. He'd never known sin. He'd never known anything like that. Because he's God, so there's no sin in him. But he chose to pick up the sins of other people and put it on himself and wear it. And then die and give his life. Sometimes I think we think when we grow up in church, we tend to get this attitude and this atmosphere that when Jesus died on the cross, because he was all God, it was really like not that bad for him. It was horrible. It was excruciating. I have never broken a bone. I am not an athlete. I am not the person that's like, ooh, I really want to run, so I'm going to run past the pain till I get good at it. No. I'm like, no thanks. They say breaking a bone is painful. I wouldn't know. I don't like pain. Humans are built that way. We don't enjoy pain, hopefully. If you do, we have some prayer teams that can talk to you. That's probably another situation. Anyway, there is an excruciating amount of pain that Jesus went through. It was the worst possible pain that you could ever experience. And at any moment, in any step of the crucifixion, Jesus could have decided and said with one thought or one word, I'm done with this, they're not worth it. I don't want to do this anymore. He could have been released from everything he was suffering at any point in time, but he stayed and he chose to stay in it. Because he knew if he didn't do that, we would have to. And he loved and cared So much that he decided, I'm going to do this so you don't have to. I'm going to carry this so you don't have to. I'm going to wear this so you don't have to. That's the truest definition of love. Love is not an emotion. Because if it's an emotion, then it's something you can fall in or fall out of. Which means that when situations and relationships get tough, because if you're in a relationship of any form and any kind with other people, it's going to get rocky, it's going to get a little rough, and you're going to have some moments that you're going to be like, I don't want to love you anymore. Because people are not easy. We're hard and we're rough around the edges and we have lots of imperfections. And so when we go to love each other, it's not always easy. It's a choice. I choose to love you because somebody chose to love me. Jesus didn't have to love us. When Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, at that moment, there were only two people. God could have said, you know what? I'm not super attached to these two. We can just wipe the slate clean, start over, we'll fix this problem. But he didn't because he loved them. He chose to forgive them. He chose to love them. He chose to make a plan and an order for things to fix their mess up. Love is a choice. It's something that we choose to do when things get a little rough around the edges. If you'll open your Bibles to Colossians, we're going to read Colossians chapter 3. It talks a little bit about love. And before we read it, we are the only religion that deals in love. We're also the only religion that somebody else paid for our mess up and our mistake. Because the sins that we've committed, the things that we're guilty of, the things that we're freed from, we don't go back and pay for because they're already paid. If you do some research, other religions, you pay for your own sin. And then the people in your family pay for your sin, and everybody else pays for your sin because you and everybody around you, well, you all must be bad. That's that thinking. But we're the only ones that God said, no, I know you messed up. I know you're gonna mess up, probably a lot more. But that's okay because I'm gonna carry it and I'm gonna take care of it. So every punishment that you ever should suffer, I'm gonna wear and I'm gonna carry so that you don't have to. I'm gonna hold it because I love you. So I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna be your shield. I'm gonna be your guard. So in Christianity, if we're really saved and we really give our life over to God, and what salvation does is when we give who we are over to God and God comes and lives in us and resides in us and makes us new creations, and we wear the character of God, we should look like love. In Hebrew, there's 4 different words. There's the brotherly love, there's the romantic love, there's the family love, and then there's God love. We have one word. Like I said, we have one word for the I love my food, to I love my truck, to I love my dog, to I love my family, to I love my other people. We just use the same thing. And a lot of times we think because our word is the same, that our actions are. And in our world today, we kind of tend to throw that word around so effortlessly. Oh yeah, I love you. And we don't think twice about it. But if we really love people, shouldn't our actions show it? Looking like love is interesting. This is what it says in Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. It says, "So chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in a wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic, all-purpose garment. Never be without it." Sadly, what we find when we look at a lot of our lives in the American Christian church, we find that definition of love, the biblical definition of love, is sadly kind of absent. If you read 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about what love is. It's patient, it's kind, it's not jealous or proud or rude. It doesn't demand its own way. And the list goes on and on. If we take that and we apply that to our life and the people that we get involved with, the people that we meet face to face, whether it's at the grocery store or whether it's in this building or whether it's in our home or our school or our workplace, do we treat every person like that? Do we treat every person with true love, with kindness, with compassion, preferring others over ourselves, being even-tempered? When you look at the life of Jesus, he dealt with all of the people that society said, ugh, don't hang out with those people, they're not good. The people Jesus hung out with were the tax collectors, the thieves, the outcasts, we'll call them, the prostitutes, the other thing, all of the people in society, all of the people that their society said, you're not worth my time. Get your life together. Because you don't look like I want you to look. And all Jesus did was love them. He loved them. He corrected them, because that's part of love, is going and saying, don't do that anymore. That's not of God. But he just loved them in kindness, in compassion, in grace. In our world, in our situations, in our life, in our relationships, how often do we get in a situation of some type with another person that we're really not that kind? Do you know, according to the people that are not Christians in our world, that if you ask someone that is not a Christian about Christians, they'll say that Christians are the meanest people around? because we are. Somehow we got the definition that because we're forgiven, it gives us license to point out the other one's faults and say, you need to get your life together because I was made righteous and I'm loved, so I am now the elite, bratty child that gets to say, you're bad, get your life together. God didn't make you judge. He didn't make me judge. He didn't make us judge or king of the world. He said, go into the world, spread the gospel, and love them. Love does not look like, let me tell you what's wrong with you so you can get your life together. That is not what love looks like. Love does not look like, I'm going to be around you, but I'm really better than you. So I'll spend time with you because, well, poor baby, you need it. That is not love. That is a self-righteous division that the enemy brings in because the enemy has convinced us that as Christians, we have license to create those lines of division and say someone is less or better than someone else because of certain areas of their life. We are not treating others like God treated us because at what point in our life did God look at us and say, yeah, I'm better than you. You're not worth my time yet. Get your life together first. At no point in time has God ever said that. God stands and says, I love you. Mess ups, mistakes, brokenness, fear, all of your issues, all of your mess ups, I love you. Why don't you just come and sit and talk with me? You don't have to get cleaned up first. Just come sit and talk with me and I'll take care of the cleanup. I'll take care of your mess up. I'll make it better. I'll fix it. What would our world really look like if we really treated the people in our lives like that? If we really looked at the people around us and said, yeah, you're a little bit messed up and a little bit broken, but you know what? So am I. So I'm just going to help you in whatever way I can. I'm just going to be your friend. I'm just going to tell you that, you know what? You might be dealing with some hard stuff right now, but it's going to be okay. And I know it's going to be okay because I know the God that loves me, he loves you. So it's going to be okay. That spirit of kindness, it needs to return to the life of love of our heart. That even temperedness. And I know when things when they set you off and they make you angry, it's really, really easy to want to choke people. If you ask anyone that goes on any mission trip with our youth group, that is the one time that it's like, I love you, but you need to go for a walk. I need to go for a walk. Most of the time it's fixed if someone gives me some coffee, because it's normally when someone hasn't given me any coffee and I'm not happy. But life will rub you different ways. Life with other people is designed to sharpen us. Iron sharpens iron. We're supposed to rub the rough edges off of other people in a good way. Not let me tell you where your rough edges are so that I can poke at them and you can fix them and feel bad about yourself. Most of the time, the enemy already makes the people you're talking to feel bad about themselves anyway. He doesn't need your help. But God does. Because God's saying, I put you there so that you can make them feel better, not worse. So you can tell them what they can't hear me saying right now, which is I love them and I chose them and I want them in my house, in my home where they're safe. And somehow our Christianity has turned into, we're gonna sit in our church and we're gonna know that you need Jesus outside of our doors and we're gonna know you need God, but we're gonna sit here and we're gonna say, Jesus, save them because they need you. And Jesus is saying, hello, this is the job that I gave you. Get up and go love them. Get up and go sit in their mess with them. You might get a little dirty. You might get a little messy. You might get a little hurt. But sometimes loving other people the way God said to means you have to walk through their junk with them. Because Jesus walked through it with us and for us. The greatest commandment that Jesus gave, we talk about it. It's called the Golden Rule. It's even used on commercials because it's become so common. Love your neighbor as yourself. Somehow, we got to the point where we took that statement and decided what it meant. We decided what love should look like because love is really only the time that I want to give you in my spare time when I'm not doing what I want to do. I can be bothered with you because I have 5 minutes. But if I really want to take a nap this afternoon, I'll love you tomorrow. So first we decided what love should kind of be in our definition of love. And then we justified what neighbor meant. Well, I don't really know them. They're not my neighbor. Okay, if they're a person near you, they're your neighbor. If your eyes can see them, they're your neighbor. Go love them in the right way. Just clarification. But first, in order to love the people outside of our doors, the people that we lay eyes on, we have to understand what it means. We have to understand what it looks like when we love them. To be kind to them. To be gracious with them. To forgive them as quickly and completely as God forgave us. That's probably one of the hardest ones. Because if you're going to deal with people, you're going to get hurt. If you've had any dealings with people, someone has hurt your feelings. It might have been in kindergarten, but someone has done something in some point of your life. Because we're human. Nobody's perfect, so our imperfections are going to cause issues for other people. Because we have this lack of communication and this lack of understanding. And then we have this massive thing in the middle called selfishness, that everybody wants their own way, which just makes a mess of everything. But real love says, you know what? I might not want to forgive you. I might want to be angry with you for just a little bit longer. But the Lord says I'm supposed to love you. So I'm going to forgive you. And I'm going to learn to love you. And I'm going to choose to love you. And I'm going to choose to say, I'm going to stay here. And I'm going to love you. In all your faults, in all your mess ups, I'm going to give you grace. I'm going to give you kindness. I'm going to give you forgiveness. I'm going to let you find your way. And all I'm going to do is be your friend and love you. If we did that in our world, do you know how different it would look? Love is something that is challenging. And it's something that we now in our society only define as either it makes me feel good or I want it. That's how we define love in our society today. Because if it doesn't do both of the one or both of those things, then it's not love. It's why marriages are falling apart. It's why families are falling apart. It's why kids are running away. It's why people feel lost and broken and abandoned and lonely, is because the love that we as believers are supposed to provide for them, that we are their safe place, we are their security, we are their family, we're not providing it. We're providing a society because we're falling into that same definition of what love is. And it's, well, yeah, I know you come to church with me, but you don't make me feel good, so I don't like you. Pretty sure the disciples did not make Jesus feel good all the time. Pretty sure he was really irritated with them sometimes. But he loved them. If you want to look like Jesus, if you want to be the mirror image of God and reflect the character of God, then love needs to be at the basis of everything you are. And it needs to start in your home, and it needs to start in your church family, and it needs to start in your workplace and in your school, and that person that grinds your little gears every time you see them. That's where you start. My grandmother used to say this all the time, and it's really good advice. When we would talk about having a problem with somebody, or I really just don't like that person, her advice would be, pray for them. I don't want to pray for them. I don't like them. Did you not hear I don't like them? I don't want to pray for them. And she was like, pray blessing on them. Pray for them. When you do that, God ends up changing your heart. It's the perfect advice. So if you have someone in your life that is really hard to love, then I suggest that you get alone with God and you make that person on the top of your prayer list and you pray over them. And you pray blessing. You don't pray for God to jump out and get them. Don't do that. He probably won't answer that prayer anyway because, pray grace over them. Pray blessing over them. Pray favor over them. Pray love over them. Because before you know it, God will invade and he will change your heart, and the eyes that you see through will be the eyes of God. Because you see, love needs to start in ourselves. Because see, the basis and the true core of love starts at the foundation of one thing. Knowing that you are loved by God and loving him back. Because when you know God loves you, and you know the way God loves you, it gets a little easier to love other people. We need to set aside the attitude of selfishness, the attitude of, you know what, I can love you, but I don't have to like you. No. I ask this question sometimes to the teenagers, and it's the people that you see, that you lay eyes on. What happens if you are the only representation of God they ever see? When they see you, when they meet you, when they talk to you, is there enough God in you that it'll change them? What if you are the only God they ever see? Do we look like love? Or do we look like a list of rules and regulations? Are we mean? Are we angry? Are we closed off because maybe you're not mean, maybe you're not angry, maybe you're just so closed off because of things that you've experienced that you can't love anybody else because you don't even know how? The worship team's going to come. And as they do, there is no possible way that we can go out in our world and we can wear love as our all-purpose garment with kindness and compassion and humility and strength, with even-temperness, with preferring others, with being not proud or rude or jealous. There's no possible way we can leave this place and be the hands and feet of God that love the people around us if we don't understand and experience the love of God for ourselves. Because what Kyle said this morning about celebrating where you've come from, celebrating where you are. Don't look with guilt. Don't look with that. Celebrate where you are. The definition of love needs to change in us first. The Lord doesn't look at you and have a list of all of your mess ups and all of your mistakes. He looks at you and all he sees is, ooh, I love that one. That one's mine. That hair, that face, that character, that personality, I made it. I designed it. I love that one. And that one, and that one, and that one. They're mine. They're my kids. They're part of my heart. They're the ones I love. They're the ones I made. They're the ones I picked. They're the ones I chose. Our world is messed up and it's broken and it's craving love over everything else, and we've transformed it, and our world has changed it and said, love is not what the Bible defines as love. Love is whatever makes you feel good in the moment, wherever you are. If you love this person or that person because it makes you feel good, then great. Whatever makes you happy is love. No. Love is what stood in front of you at the edge of heaven and said, every mistake you've ever made is mine. Love is what stands in front of you today and says, you may feel lost and you may feel broken and you may feel messed up and you may feel worthless. But when I look at you, I see a heart and a character that I made. Love is God that stands in front of you and says, come home. Come home. Every bit of fear, every bit of brokenness is erased when you fall into the arms of God and you say, God, I don't know how to love you, and I might not know how to love other people the right way, but I want to. And I just want to be loved by you. I can promise you that when you fall into the arms of God and you say, God, I just want you to love me. I just want to see it and feel it and know it. If you ask him for it, he will come in and he will transform every part of who you are. And in time, he will begin to give you his eyes. So when you see people, you'll see what he sees. You'll walk around Walmart or your workplace or your school, and you'll see people and you'll see exactly what God sees when he looks at them. It is the best thing ever when you get to look at people and you see what God sees. When you see his heart. When you see how much he loves people. It transforms you. It changes you. And it helps us walk in this life of love. So if you'll stand to your feet with me. Maybe you have never experienced the true love of God. You may have been saved your entire life. But up until this point, Christianity has been a list of rules and regulations and do's and don'ts. Maybe this is the first time you have ever walked into a church and heard anything about God. Maybe you've been in love with God for years. And you know his voice and you know his presence better than anything else. The Lord wants to love you. And I do want to offer up that if you need to experience the love of God afresh and anew, then I'm going to ask the prayer teams to come. And we're not going to stay very long, but I want to open the door that if anybody wants to experience the true love of God for the first time, for the 1,000th time, maybe you've never given your life, maybe you've never really said, Lord, my life is yours, and I'm going to release it to you completely and totally right now. Maybe you did that a long time ago, but you kind of feel like where you've ended up isn't really where you started, and you just need to do this all over again. Maybe you just want to feel God a little bit better. Wherever you are in your journey, the Lord wants to talk to you today. And the Lord wants to love on you today. So as the worship team is going to play a song, I want to invite you that if you want to experience the love of God in any way, then I'm going to invite you to come to the altar. Our prayer teams are here if you want to pray with someone. If you just want to sit and come and say, Lord, I just want to come sit with you.